While defending his tariffs in a post on Truth Social, President Trump said he planned on giving all American citizens, aside from high-income earners, a dividend. Let's go to Emma Withrow from the Fact Check team. Any indication who specifically would qualify for these bonuses?
So there hasn't been like an official plan released or anything. All we've seen was that one post from Truth Social from President Trump, and we don't really know who he considers to be high income. But what we do know is that he plans to use money generated by the tariffs to dish out these bonus checks, or as he's calling them, dividends. And he said the checks would be about $2,000 a pop. Also, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent told Fox News that the dividend could come in lots of different forms, lots of different ways. So maybe we could even see certain tax cuts, but there's also the possibility they could be like that stimulus check that we saw.
Still remains to be seen, but yeah, that definitely came to mind. When we're looking at whether these tariffs have generated enough revenue to pay for all of these dividends, what is the outlook?
So at this point, it doesn't look like they would have the money or the means to do that right now, but potentially in the near future. So according to the Committee for a Responsible Budget, the tariffs generated around $195 billion in fiscal year 2025. And according to the U.S. Census, around 173 million Americans made less than $100,000 in 2023. So that would add up to about $346 billion if they were to cut, those $2,000 checks for each of those people. However, the Tax Foundation predicts that the tariffs are going to generate around $1.8 trillion over the next 10 years. So in the future, it seems like there would be enough to cover those $2,000 dividends that Trump is suggesting. We're just going to have to wait and see how it all plays out, especially with the Supreme Court.
Absolutely. That's a good point. Emma, thank you so much. A little later on, Emma will be back to dig into the legality of dividends being distributed to the American people and whether it's ever been done before. President Trump is framing his tariff plan like a business deal, and he's telling Americans they're the shareholders. He says every citizen will get a $2,000 dividend paid out from the money generated by those tariffs. Let's go to Emma Withrow from the Fact Check team. And earlier, you were discussing how these checks for low and middle income Americans, that would add up to about $346 billion.
Yeah.
What about Congress? What's the role here of them?
So Congress obviously has the power of the purse, but things have gotten a little bit tricky with this new administration and the ways that laws are interpreted, hence, the Supreme Court having to decide whether these tariffs were legal in the first place. Regardless of all of that, though, under current law, tariff money goes into the U.S. Treasury's general fund. It's treated like any other tax revenue. So to turn that into direct payments, Congress would have to pass legislation authorizing those dividends, just like lawmakers did for the, those stimulus checks that we all got in 2020.
Absolutely. That definitely came to mind. But this idea specifically, has this ever been done in American history?
From the research that I did today, it doesn't seem like this specifically has been done, but there have been times that the feds returned money to the public, but it was always almost through Congress. So the closest parallels would be those COVID stimulus checks, also the tax rebates in 2001 and also 2008, those economic stimulus payments that happened. The only true dividend model in the U.S. exists actually at the state level in Alaska, where oil revenues from state-owned lands are invested and then paid out to residents through this Alaska Permanent Dividend Fund, which I thought was really interesting.
That is an interesting potential connection. We'll see how far this goes. Emma, thank you so much. And for more on this Fact Check team topic, including links to their sources, scan the QR code or visit thenationaldesk.com.
I'm Atra Al-Nashar in Washington. President Trump doubling down on his pledge to send low and middle income Americans $2,000 dividends using tariff revenue. It's a tall promise and one that government budget experts say would require 2 years of tariffs to pay for. President Trump wants to send Americans direct payments. It's not technically a stimulus check like the one sent out during the pandemic, instead giving Americans a share of revenue generated by tariffs.
We're going to issue a dividend to our middle income people and lower income people of about $2,000.
The president would not be able to do this on his own.
It will have to be passed by Congress, but the reality is just this, that because of Biden's inflation, which averaged 5% over 4 years, that people on average lost about $3,400 in purchasing power, and they've gained about $1,200 this year, but there's still room to go.
Just last month, the president said tariff revenue would first be used to pay some of America's $38 trillion debt.
Number one, we're paying down debt because people have allowed the debt to go crazy.
When we studied the matter in the summer, that we thought that deficit reduction might be the best use of those monies, but we've had a big surge in tax revenues. You've seen even a bit surplus in the latest monthly Treasury report.
Experts at the Nonpartisan Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget say this doesn't add up.
The reality is we have surpluses in tax collection months. So we have surpluses in April, we have surpluses in September. Overall, there's no surge in revenue, and what we're seeing is Deficits are still trucking along at about $2 trillion a year.
With paying dividends now the priority, the question remains, can America afford it?
The tariffs that President Trump has enacted, when they're in full effect, are going to raise about $300 billion a year. That's a lot of money. But sending every American or every American that's not high income $2,000 would cost $600 billion.
Pumping that much money into the economy would likely make inflation worse. Now, if the Supreme Court decides that most of the president's tariffs are unconstitutional, the committee forecasts it would take 7 years for the remaining tariffs to generate enough revenue to pay Americans $2,000 dividends. In Washington, I'm Atra Al-Nashar.